Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sheila Boynton with Learning Blade. Looking forward to spending a little time with you all this afternoon. Show a little bit about Learning Blade. I'll wait another minute or so as people are still joining, but I would love it if you can put in the chat who you are and where you are from, what school you're at, or what organization, town, etc. That would be lovely. Great, welcome. I see a few people starting to chime in, so please feel free to go ahead and type in the chat where you're from and who you're with. Get started in just another minute. People joining, welcome everybody. As I said earlier, if you don't mind typing in who you are and where you're from, maybe what you teach, etc., that will be great if you can type it into the chat. Thank you so much. All right, I am going to get started here. Okay, and then we'll show my screen. I'm hoping you guys can see my screen now. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us today to learn a little bit about Learning Blade and specifically how we address computer science. I first want to just give a thank you to the many different groups that have allowed Learning Blade to be free to all of them. Okay, Brenda Terry's on, my friend Brenda Terry from Amstack is on, and thank you so much, Brenda, for all your tremendous support. And additionally, as I mentioned, I want to thank several organizations who have made Learning Blade available free to anyone in the state of Alabama, including the Alabama Works Group, federal funds from WIOA, Boeing Corporation, as well as the Alabama Department of Education, specifically Career and Technical Education, along with the governor's office and Governor Ivy and her tremendous support for STEM and computer science is very well known across the state. So love to just set the stage as to why this is important. You know, getting to hear this morning from Ruth Farmer, who's a good friend from CS for All and others today, that will talk about, you know, a lot about the actual courses in computer science, coding, AI, cybersecurity. All of these things are so important in subjects. But really, if we look back, and again, you know, not much of our time today has been spent on this, but this is a very important piece of this puzzle, which is the main reason that kids do not pursue computer science and STEM careers. And that is very simple. They just don't know about them, their lack of awareness. And so while that is a very simple concept, there's not a lot of efforts that are always bolted into what we're doing with computer science and STEM that make sure that we understand about the careers. It certainly has become more prevalent in the last couple of years, and it's continuing to grow. The other piece is also those middle grades. Those middle grades are where kids are making their career-related decisions. Doesn't mean they're picking their exact career, but it does mean the things that they do, the math classes they take, the science classes they do, etc., all drives them into their path forward. This was further validated by a study that came out that showed that 42% of Americans would have considered the STEM courses if they just better understood the career path. So again, just pointing back to that career awareness piece. And that's really what we're here to talk about. Learning Blade was really designed to sort of hit that really nail on the head, the career awareness piece. But in doing that, we really needed to find unique ways to engage with students and, of course, with you great teachers as well. The way we're engaging with students is contextualizing the learning and really trying to tailor it to the interests of kids, as we'll talk about. The other piece for teachers specifically that we knew we needed to do was really make sure that we could reinforce the academic standards that all of you are being judged on in education, but also to provide resources that I love to say any teacher, any staff person can actually use, making it very simple for teachers, even highly trained or not highly trained in STEM and computer science, can deliver. You know, what's great about this is that we have success on both ends of the spectrum. We have teachers who have never even heard the word STEM that use Learning Blade and are able to deliver a robust opportunity to their students. But similarly, the last 2 years in South Carolina, their STEM teacher of the year actually was one of our highest users in the state, both years. So again, you know, a great resource for those that really are not that familiar with these sort of things, and a great resource for those that are. So really, really doing that. So again, you know, the demand for STEM is growing. That's not really an unknown thing, you know, computer science workers. But we hear a lot about AI and cybersecurity and a lot of these different things. But also we've got to remember that some of these great careers and being a computer technologist, etc., do not require only a 4-year degree. You can also get some great training in these career pathways in your community college system as well. Women, minorities, we are underrepresented in that space. And so while women were 50% of the workforce, yet we're only, you know, 26% of the STEM workforce. And Ruth Farmer did talk about that this morning. And she also talked about the fact that in schools now, you know, 50% of our students are actually of a different race. So, you know, we really are seeing a blend of underrepresented students, et cetera, in our schools and in our workforce. Additionally, really what motivated us to do what we're doing is this chart on the right that showed that kids that had some great math skills and were interested in STEM were at 21%. And off they go, hey, they're fine. But those students that were actually had some decent math skills but were not interested in STEM or computer science numbered in the 23% range. To us, that seemed like low-hanging fruit. Could we do a really unique strategy to try to get kids interested? And not to forget about the other buckets, because this certainly has value all the way around. So Learning Blade was really designed to kind of meet that need of the teachers and the students and really get them interested by framing these computer science and these STEM careers in a mission format. So what we tried to do was build a storyline around the different types of computer science and STEM careers that are out there. And, you know, as was mentioned this morning, there's really not many careers or hardly any at all that don't require some kind of computer science or tech background. Doesn't mean everybody needs to know how to code, but they need to have some working knowledge. And I think definitely, as was mentioned during this pandemic, you know, using these online technologies and, you know, having to order your groceries online or even schedule your vaccine appointment, you know, really required some tech skills. And so making sure that we could give everyone kind of an equal opportunity to learn this, Learning Blade was developed in this way, this contextualization around a societal issue. Because kids, really millennials, girls, particularly like career paths, where we're helping people. And if we don't take them all the way to the finish line to show them, you know, how being an IT, a UX, UI designer actually helps society, we're not going to be able to really attract kids into these fields. So for each of those 12 missions, we offer this suite of resources. So this is a tremendous offering. So we have our central component is our interactive lessons, which are tied to all Alabama academic standards. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. We also offer challenge projects, or what you might be commonly calling project-based learning lessons. Again, a lot of project-based learning is out there in STEM, in computer science, learning about things, but frequently they involve buying a lot of expensive equipment. So we wanted ways to actually teach, have teachers have lessons that they could do with their students, even when they don't have a lot of expensive equipment in their classroom. We also offer design thinking. Again, talking about the computational thinking, etc. We need kids who can ideate, innovate, right? I mean, I think we've seen that over our past, and we're going to see it in the future. We want students to be able to come up with solutions to complex problems. So that starts with something that you might know of as the 5-step design thinking process. And so we use that to actually help kids look at each one of those mission topics and come up with their own solutions on how they might solve it. Our 3D printing activities, obviously a little bit different. You do need a 3D printer to do these, and many schools were getting 3D printers, but frequently they were not able to utilize them in a way that really contributed to instruction. Maybe they built a paperweight or something of that nature. So we wanted to provide opportunities for teachers and students alike to utilize 3D printing in a way that helped them understand what I like to think of as additive manufacturing. For example, you can take our 3D printing lesson, which actually starts out with sort of an idea around the solving of the problem that we're talking about in the mission. They can work with it online with Thingiverse or Tinkercad. Many of you might be familiar with some of these programs, and modify the design. Then they can print it on the 3D printer, and then they can actually do an experiment with it. So again, this is really soup to nuts around what I call additive manufacturing. You have the Mercedes great plant in Alabama and other manufacturers who are using this very process to actually print and deliver materials and products right now. So if you can give your kids the opportunity to see that whole process, this really sets them on a path that could be really fantastic for their career. Our career videos, we have, again, 50 careers and real life people, just getting to see a day in the life of these videos of people in these careers. And our parent discussions, again, during COVID have been very valuable in that they allow a parent to have a discussion with their child, even if they have no background in computer science or STEM. They're able to actually have a conversation through a table topic and do maybe some research on their phone, and then also maybe do a home experiment. Our coding activities, again, of course, everyone's very familiar with code.org, fantastic materials. What was brought to us actually through the National Boy Scouts was that, while code.org had phenomenal materials, sometimes you need a little background in coding to be able to utilize them. So they asked us, the Boy Scouts did, can we take code.org lessons and kind of break them up into bite-sized chunks, kind of a cookbook method of using code.org materials. We said, yes, we can, but we want to be able to de-Boy Scout it and put it into Learning Blade. What's great about this is now, probably most of you might be computer science trained, but until you are, or you have teachers in your school that aren't, they can use these coding activities to integrate coding into their classroom with having no training in computer science yet. I know you have some tremendous opportunities for the A+ training, so that's definitely where you want to get your training for that. But for teachers that may not have the ability to do that, this is another offering for them. Lastly, our papercraft figures are based on Minecraft. My kids are grown, but everybody tells me that's supposed to be really great. And the Minecraft theme and around that. But what we tried to do is create some origami type building figures so that students can learn about the careers and technologies they've just heard about in the activities. Now, specifically around computer science, we really have tried to develop some resources that allow teachers and students alike to learn a little bit more about the language and what is entailed within the technologies and the careers in computer science. For example, this is one of our 12 missions, as you saw, the hack attack. This is where a school's website is hacked. So again, talking about cybersecurity and how the students can address it. So in this one, we look at our tools, which are in our orange circles, which we really call our technologies. And then our green circles are teammates or our careers. Now, kids earn the tool or teammate by completing these mini academic lessons. Now, you might see something a little different here. You know, a lot of computer science, et cetera, may just focus on science. It may have some math, but we actually also included English and social studies. Guess what? Just because you're good in English or social studies doesn't mean you shouldn't get excited about something you learn in a Learning Blade mission. Then you can have a student follow a career path they may not have thought of before. So again, we wanted to attract students in a different way. We also wanted to support teachers by having this utilized in more than just science or computer science class or STEM classes, etc. I know you guys have the wonderful class in your 9th grade, which is, oh, my mind is blanking on me right now, your career preparedness class, which this is a very appropriate piece for this as well. We also did computer science in the context of a healthcare scenario. Now, of course, I think everyone is familiar with an outbreak now, but this is our flu outbreak mission that we had long before COVID, but very well used right now, but definitely looking at IT and big data. So again, you know, we're not just talking about coding, we're talking about the ways that you can utilize coding to actually solve problems in society. And so in this one particularly, we're looking at a flu outbreak, working with social media and other avenues to try to figure out how that outbreak occurred. Sounds familiar? Yes, it's exactly what we're going through today as well. And of course, we have our vaccines and our epidemiologists, all the things that we're hearing about, again, very relevant. But now we're showing kids how English skills, math skills, science, and social studies skills actually also relate to these types of careers. Now, in our, as I mentioned, to be available at no charge to any school. And so already across the state, over 200,000 of these online lessons have been completed. We've had 30,000 students have been impacted. We've done about 75 or more teacher training events. And very excitingly, you see 3D printers. So we actually have a partnership with FlashForge, which is a national 3D printing company, and a school that finishes a certain number of lessons. We sort of gauge that every year. It's usually between 3,000 to 5,000 online lessons, wins a free 3D printer from us. So again, just another reason to have an opportunity to utilize Learning Blade. We've heard from CTE teachers and others all across the state that kids do enjoy being in Learning Blade, and it does help them realize they'll be using math in a future career. Imagine that. You always hear, when will I use that? What's great is our studies have shown through some studies that we've had done, showed that we had a 55% increase in kids interested in a computer science career after the use of Learning Blade. So again, just a very strong, strong sentiment on that. One of the last things I did before the pandemic was on March 9th last year, we were able to take Governor Ivey to the Decatur area, and she was able to go to Austin Middle School and see how Learning Blade was being utilized in action. She was very excited about that. We were thrilled to have her be able to come. She commented on, you know, that she realized that this was important in terms of exploring a career path at an early age. So again, I think that was mentioned earlier as well in some of the conversations that have been happening today at your summit. Now let's talk a little bit about how we introduced to kind of some of the concepts of computer science, and then we are going to have a time for a demo as well in the platform. But, you know, really, we really think that it's important to look at computer science and some of those concepts, essential concepts, in a larger way. So we look at digital citizenship, foundational concepts and operations, analytical, innovative thinking, as I mentioned earlier, information storage and access, something very important in the computer science space, and communication and collaboration. So really, we take all of those and try to find ways to integrate that into our platform in learning. So that way it is really, we're not, you know, it's kind of like math and English. You know, you might say 2 + 2 is math, But really, we also want to say, why do you need to know 2 plus 2? So we use that as an opportunity to really have the opportunity to expose kids to different types of concepts around computer science while they're in the middle of that storyline, like I showed you, either the hack attack or the flu outbreak. But I can tell you there are many other of our missions that include definitely computer science type of concepts. Additionally, we were working with the National Computer Science, and we were working with the National Gear Up grants, and we were funded by the largest grant. It is in Eastern Kentucky, and they wanted an opportunity to actually look at ways to implement computer science. So they asked us if we would work to kind of make a computational thinking and computer science simple course that every student could take. So what we did is we developed a thing we call Intro to Computer Science. Now, again, this takes you through, 5 sort of technologies in computer science and 5 different careers in computer science. And this is about a 2-hour course, the entire thing, okay? So it's 2 hours. But it's a great way to allow kids to quickly have an introduction to computer science. It is aligned to all Alabama standards. I know we say Arkansas there, but it is aligned to all Alabama standards as well as your new computer science standards as well. So it's a very powerful piece that allows you to quickly expose kids to computer science in this way. As I mentioned, many of our other lessons, again, this is kind of the eye chart for the presentation, but it suffices to say we have a number of different types of lessons, not just only in our hack attack or a flu outbreak, but in many of our other courses that actually allow you to see different computer science careers. Now, we have really had some tremendous success in actually looking at ways to integrate computer science, and we've heard from teachers across the country, this happens to be from Florida and Arkansas, who have really specifically called on Learning Blade to utilize addressing cybersecurity standards in Florida, but even seeing the increase in the number of students taking their 9th grade computer science class after using Learning Blade in 8th grade. In fact, even for girls, a teacher in Arkansas shared with us. So again, really trying to move the needle on moving kids toward that. We also let kids select the mission themselves, or teachers can assign a specific mission. This is up to you all to do as well. You choose. Kids will operate the mission from this dashboard, so it's got some gaming aspects, and I'm going to turn it over to Dane in a few minutes and let him be able to show you some of the system itself. But it suffices to say that we introduce the students to the careers while reviewing academics, as we always want to. I mentioned earlier, we do employ the Alabama standards and integrate those into this system. So for teachers, this is very powerful. So what I would love to say here is you can actually use this search bar to type in the actual standard or a keyword, and it will pull up all the lessons that actually address that standard and or that keyword. Now, this is very, very powerful for you all as you're trying to make sure we straddle the fence, where we're trying to teach computer science, but also review academic standards. This is really the winning resource for that because we have integrated this into the system. As I mentioned, we do have that hour of code and some of the code.org resources linked in here so that students and teachers alike can actually do this at different levels, learning about how to build an app, etc. too. And lastly, I wanted to share, as we mentioned, we've had some tremendous success. Battelle, largest nonprofit research institution in the country, has validated this resource as increasing interest in STEM careers, 55% increase in kids, as I mentioned earlier, in computer science, doubling the number of kids that are interested in being an engineer or scientist. Back to that lovely data, around 69% increase in kids recognizing what I use in school will be useful later in life. We also had an independent ED thesis that was actually utilized looking at schools that use Learning Blade and those that didn't. Again, 140% more likely to now say they know what STEM workers do. You can't be what you can't see. So again, just finding better ways to put careers out there for individuals, but at the same time, providing resources for teachers to be able to do this. So I'm going to turn it over to Dane now and let him take you through the system. If there are any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box. I'm a little not as familiar with the Hopin platform, but we will definitely try to get to those at the end. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dane Boynton, who's going to show you a little bit more. Oh, okay, I see some. There's Brenda. Hi, Brenda.
Hey, how you doing? Okay, welcome everyone. And so what I'd like to do is actually show you a little bit of this system. Let's see here. Here, there we go. Does that work? Mm-hmm. Yes, that works. Okay, good. So I'm going to log in as a student and let you see the user experience. I can use that word here, of students in this system. So when you log in for the first time in Learning Blade, maybe you hear a soundtrack there.
You are a student on a mission. Your mission will be to solve an important problem.
So the first time you log in, it introduces the students to this concept of working on a mission and trying to solve a societal problem. And as Sheila mentioned, we have the 12 different missions, plus now the Intro to Computer Science mission and the Intro to Engineering mission down here for a total of 14 different activities that students can work on. So teachers, as she mentioned, can limit the screen for particular classes to certain missions. But whenever you start one of the missions, we do have a full-size version of the mission, the full mission, which lasts about 8 to 9 hours of the online content, learning about those different careers and technologies, or an express version of each mission, which cuts it down to 1 to 2 hours of the online content. And as she did mention, our original take on IT careers was actually based on tracking a flu outbreak. The idea was, could you watch if you're watching your social media blow up with everyone getting sick, could you use that information to track and record the progress of an epidemic? Unfortunately, we've learned the answer is yes, we can do this. But that's really was our introduction to first IT technologies. And so in this introduction, we would pick out the technologies we would use. Obviously, we're going to use social media, we use geographic information systems, we'll be using a computer programmer and our computers to help track this information. I'm going to skip the rest of this intro and get more to the point, because here on this dashboard is where students actually operate the mission. So they have a running score down the bottom and progress bars on earning their tools and teammates. But on the right-hand side, you'll see the different technologies and teammates that we actually teach about. So this one's sort of a blend, because we talk about epidemiologists and statisticians, but we also talk about computer programmers and database administrators. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to look at database administrator. So we will actually have these little 10-minute lessons that Sheila talked about. Well, we'll do a number of different things. One of them was we'll talk about what this career is. So we'll talk about what the typical life of a database administrator's day is. And we'll also show some of the technologies and experiences through that. Now, these are the little 10-minute interactive lessons. You can bookmark and resume where they left off, but I'll start it back at the beginning for this particular mission, or sorry, this particular lesson. So what we want to do is talk about the technologies and talk about how they use various skills that you learn in middle school in the process of doing this. Now, this one is talking about basically what is a database and how is that information put together. So we'll talk about a database administrator stores vast amounts of data. So we have a chart full of data, and how would a database administrator work to put this data together? So what we're going to do is actually work the student through the concept of what fields are, records are, and tables are. So we're really taking this from the aspect of a middle schooler, your average middle school student, and trying to help them relate to how could we use information about patients in the form of a database to track this problem of this flu outbreak. So we're really going to educate them on this technology. So we're going to talk about, now that they've read this information, can we determine that a database is a set of tables? A table is a set of records. A record's an entity, and a field is a specific piece of information. So we're going to help them understand that as they go through and answer questions about what they've learned as they go through this. As they go through, they'll have a few pages of information, a question or problem, a few pages of information, a question or problem. We'll always talk about the answer on the next page. So here's the answer for what a field, record, table, and database are. And as they go through this, they'll start earning gold stars down here at the bottom. So they'll go through this lesson. In this case, it would be 29 pages where they're learning about different tasks database administrators do. And in the process, they're learning about the structure of databases. So we're really trying to form that context. Not everything we do in learning Blades, we're not writing code all the time. We have a few places where they do that, but we're really trying to put that overall context about what do you do with this information? What do you do with this technology and these type of careers? And how do you help people when you're doing that? I'm going to switch to our other IT-focused mission, which is our one on Hack Attack. And this is focused on the concept that your school website is hacked and replaced with the insignia and other materials from your opposing high school's website. And you're actually doing this when you're preparing for a robotics competition. But we really want to attract a number of different students to these technologies and these careers. So we will be looking at different aspects of this. We'll actually look at social studies aspects. We'll look at programming as a language and how can we use ELA skills in this. And so we talk about how when these students were preparing for their robotics competition, they're learning about computers when they do that. And we'll take a look back at the history of this. We'll bring up the Ada Lovelace. We'll talk about how Ada Lovelace was one of the people who programmed the Babbage machine, and how that before that, a calculator was used to talk about a person that could actually do calculations in head was called a calculator before that point. And so we'll actually talk about how Ada Lovelace was the first computer programmer in some sense of the word. So we're actually trying to attract girls to this as we work through this. I'm going to skip the rest of this lesson and go on to the concept of information security analyst. Now we're going to try to also integrate math skills as we go through this. So we're going to talk about spreading bugs, computer viruses, but in this sense, and this again was written before our current situation, but we were comparing computer virus or digital virus outbreaks to biological virus outbreaks. And we were talking about how, like in our current society, viruses can spread very quickly through computer networks. And we're talking about the speed at which this happens. And it can happen very quickly as it goes through computer to computer into your computer lab, for instance. And we'll say how fast can this happen? It can happen in a matter of days. Then we'll go on talking about how fast this happens. So we'll actually talk about drawing a graph on the number of people that have been infected by a computer virus or a biological virus. We'll talk about how this graph has this rapid acceleration at the end of it. And we really goes in and you can describe this as having doubling the number of people who get affected or the number of computers that get infected in every time period. So we talk about plotting out numbers and doubling numbers. We have the student fill in this chart as they go through. And what we're going to do as we go through this chart is we're going to actually talk about how you multiply by 2 every time and how this is related to the concept of exponents. So what this lesson really does is this is going to wind up being a lesson on exponents, but we're doing it in the context of studying computer viruses. So we'll go through, learn about exponents, and use that as a way of describing computer virus outbreaks. We also talk about different types of technologies in this. So for instance, in introducing students to technologies, we already introduced the students to concepts such as databases, forgive me. But we'll also talk about cloud technology. So we'll have the student understand what are cloud technologies. And we'll talk about how you can upload a file to the cloud. And we'll talk about where does this go. So we're going to talk about how a cloud server is actually a remote computer farm. We'll be discussing that package. We'll talk about how iCloud is an example of that. And we'll go through and simply have them understand the concepts and benefits that, for instance, the iCloud helps you from chewing up all your disk space on a computer. So another example of a technology we'll introduce and tutor the student through as we go through this. Now, as the student completes all these different lessons, they will get scores. They'll get a score on their dashboard. So they can actually look on their dashboard and see, for instance, in the Dolphin Rescue mission, which is actually our biomedical mission, I'm logged in as Dane Boynton. I can see I'm the lead in my class on this particular mission. So I've scored 54. And this, of course, is not a real class and not a real count. So most of them are blank. But I can also have teams compete against teams on these online lessons. I can have classes compete against classes. I can actually create assignment lists. So actually, you can just have like a sign-up code that you send out to your students, and they can work in these different missions. But you can actually assign different careers in technology. So if you're studying electricity, you can assign electrician. If you're studying civil, one of bridge building exercises, you can assign civil engineering. Likewise, you can assign database architect or computer programmer or UI UX designer, and assign a specific lessons to the students. But also from the teacher side, you'll have access to the additional online resources or offline resources, the lesson plans that we've made available also. So from the teacher side, obviously we have a full learning management system where we can pull reports for the different students and get reports on which students are most active and what are their scores for the individual lessons, or I can get classroom averages and so forth and so on. But if I go to my resources page, then they get to see the other resources that we have available. So for instance, in our mission challenges, which are groups of different, actually a group of 4 different exercises. But in our mission challenges, we emphasize a wide range of activities. So 4 different activities. One of them is always a press release. So one of the things in our hack attack is we want the students to write a press release for a news organization describing the hacking attack in their school and what type of preventative measures the school's taken. So how would you deal with the public outfall of a hack attack, using that as a writing exercise? A presentation, a group presentation. Now you want to make a presentation for your other students in your school. How are you going to make your school more safe against hack attacks? And how would you convince your other students to follow these procedures? Make a presentation and give that presentation. We have complete lesson plans for these. We also have other offline or other activities using other things. Of course, we'll guide them through storybooking. Storyboard for a new app and have them do a storyboard. We'll give them some instructions, some websites they can use to do that. We have a complete rubric. We also have some handouts that you can use to help students go through the storyboarding activity with that. We have design thinking. So for instance, in our hack attack mission, this is always sort of how would you solve this problem? So how could you go through a 5-step design thinking process to do that? And we'll suggest some problems, and some questions you can use for helping bring out this issue. So some discussion questions. How's your family use the internet? What do you do online? What type of accounts does your family use? Go through a video on concepts of modern digital security, public announcement campaigns about digital security, and then have them choose their own problem they want to come up with. So we'll ask them to either modify something on their phone, computer, other device that would improve the security of their device. In other words, if you picked up your phone, what could you do with your phone to improve the security of that device? Or if you're really more into public education, ELA skills, let's have you create a public education campaign on improving security habits. So we'll go through the 5-step design thinking process of gathering inspiration, defining the problem, creating your ideas, prototyping your solution, and testing your solution by displaying that prototype to your other students. We'll go through and have some questions to help guide students through each step of this process as they go through this process. So in this process, we've really tried to put together a whole framework around what could you do in society with the IT skills that you're gathering in the computer science classroom to make an impact on your society. And through that process, we want to encourage students to follow these pathways. As Sheila mentioned, our 3D printing exercises, the one other activity we have that really requires some different type of equipment, of course, that is a 3D printer. But in this, we use Sugar Labs Turtle to help students actually block program a particular shape or figure. And we'll show them how they can actually then take that figure and actually print this out. So in this process, we'll have them take that program, draw the figure, convert that into a 3D object using Tinkercad, and actually download and print this object on a 3D printer. So we'll go all the way from programming to an object that they can hold in their hands that they actually programmed with a computer program to create that object. So I hope this gives you a little idea of the variety of things that we can do with Learning Blade to help support your efforts in computer science. We appreciate your attention, and I'll bring Sheila back to help us close out.
Yes, thank you, Dane, and thank you to everybody. So we did put a couple of things in the chat box. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about Learning Blade or receiving your free license for your school, you just need to visit, go back to the PowerPoint probably, learningblade.com. And yeah, you can go to learningblade.com/AL to get your free license. If you would like a training, and we can really accommodate a training session for any number from 1 to 50, particularly all now virtual for the most part, you can just send us an email at info@learningblade.com if you are interested in having a training session. So I'd love to stop there and certainly see if there are any questions. Okay, there we go. And yeah, definitely hear from Brenda as well.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you? Okay. I just want to apologize for being late. My laptop was not cooperating, so we had to go to my phone. So anyway,
No problem.
I want to thank Sheila and Dr. Dane for all the work and their support in Alabama. I think I look back and we have been working with you in Alabama for 7 years now, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Got
Yes.
to know Sheila in 2014. We had some initial funding in the state through, of course, Thinking Media and Boeing and the governor's office. The governor has been very interested in this from the very beginning. And like Sheila said, the license, because of that support and hopefully ongoing support that we will have, then these licenses are free in the state. And thanks to Sheila and Dane's efforts on that as well. And I hope that all of you that are listening in and heard the presentation notice that, you know, it's computer science is not just about the technical piece of computers. It's also about, you heard them talking about all the language arts skills that are needed, the presentations, it's really, this really introduces the kids in a very real way to integrating all of those skills that they're learning in math and science and engineering that they will get to, and how it all fits together and is applicable to their real work and the workforce that they will be a part of real soon. So I thank Sheila and Dane for that, and having the vision to put this together, and also for Alabama having the opportunity to put this.
Definitely. I mean, I think, Brenda, you're so right. You know, I think we've heard a lot today about, you know, coding and technical skills and all. And, you know, there is so much around these different careers that we need to make sure more kids know about. And so, you know, that's one of the goals of Learning Blade, is to make it very simple for any teacher to use. I do want to add one thing. There wasn't a slide in there, but I do want to talk about our backpack app. So actually, because of the pandemic, as we well know, the digital divide has become more divided. So if your school has Chromebooks, or any students have Chromebooks, you can actually use the Backpack app, which is available at Google, and as long as you have your license for Learning Blade, and obviously anyone can have a license, and you can download some of those interactive lessons that Dane showed you onto the Chromebook. Then students can go home even when they do not have internet access and utilize this resource. Then the next time they come back to school where they have internet access, or McDonald's, or a hotspot, wherever it is, it will automatically upload the results. So this is a game changer, particularly for rural communities. You know, we heard Ruth talk this morning that, you know, like Alabama is such a great place to live, very much so. I'm just a couple hours from you in Tennessee, so very much in your neighborhood. And you know, the quality of life is very high in these states, but sometimes, you know, the people don't want to come here because of the schools, and they want their kids to have great educational opportunities. And so this is another way that you can offer this resource out across the state and to your students in rural communities by letting them use our backpack app. So if you want any more information on, of course, getting Learning Blade, getting the presentations, etc. Someone asked how many lessons are in each mission. So each mission has approximately 40 plus interactive lessons. So each of them have about 5 tools and 5 teammates. So about 10 tools or teammates, which are sort of the activities. And underneath each one of them is the 4 lessons of English, social studies, science, and math. So there's roughly about 40, maybe a little bit more than that. It takes about, and Dane showed you we have the express mission. So that takes about 2 hours to do, and our full missions take around 8 hours to do. So, but I will say our results that we shared with you in terms of moving kids more toward computer science or toward STEM careers actually only involves about 2 hours of touch time, believe it or not. So it doesn't mean that they have to do everything that they saw today in order to move their trajectory. And that was actually validated by Microsoft, not on Learning Blade, but just in general. They released a study about 2 years ago that said that even up to 2 hours of introduction into different careers actually changed the career trajectory of students. So it is pretty powerful to know that in your hands you can change some of the future of our students. And I mean, honestly, that's one of the big things that we focused on. And some of you may have heard of the Work Keys test before. I'll give you a little history about Dane and myself. You might have heard of Work Keys before, the Alabama Career Readiness Certificate. So we were the creators of the national curriculum for that, which were Key Train, Career Ready 101. We had 28 state contracts. Alabama was certainly one of our best, and worked with the state for many years on that. And Dana and I are both engineers by training, so we went back to the drawing board after ACT acquired Key Train and Career Ready from us, and we were vice presidents at ACT for a couple of years. But we really wanted to help that next generation. What Learning Blade is about is really addressing what I like to call the interest gap, just getting kids interested into these careers. I do some speaking. I'm obviously a woman, and I'm an engineer by training. And so, you know, I just believe that engineering or STEM and computer science gives kids the skills that they need and the sort of trajectory to be able to really follow whatever career path they want to do. So anyway, and I do want to thank Brenda. She has been a fearless leader for Alabama and STEM, serving on the Alabama STEM Council as well. Her notable recognition in the state should be noticed because she has done a lot to move Alabama ahead. And I think you guys are, you know, Alabama has come up as one of the top 10 states in the country for digital learning. And so, you know, hats off to Dr. Mackey and to Governor Ivey and the workforce and everybody, all the teams that have been involved in, you know, making sure that this happens in Alabama. So if you have any questions, type them into the chat box. Otherwise, we're really good teachers because we let you go early even, which is really great. Students always like that, and I think teachers even like that as well. So thank you again for the time. If you want to get any information or the presentation, just email us at info@learningblade.com and we will take care of that. And I want to thank Amanda as well for her excellent organization with this summit as well. It's been really fantastic. So thanks again, everybody. Info@learningblade.com. If you want more info, it is info@learningblade.com. So you can email us. All right. I hope everyone has a very okay. I'm getting off. Goodbye, everybody. Yes, email us at info@learningblade.com and we will send you the presentation. All right. Have a great day, everybody.